Robert Bergman, and you're watching GVTV News.
Thanks, Robert, and I'm Randy Hansen. In today's World News Stories, Obama says with U.S. withdrawal, war in Iraq will be over. U.S. to keep private forces, negotiate new military terms in Iraq, and Clinton warns Iran on withdrawal. And Libyans celebrate liberation following Gaddafi's death. And U.S. recalls Syria ambassador over alleged threats. And McCain raises specter of U.S. military action in Syria. And Panetta says Pacific region top priority for U.S. military. And Tunisians select assembly in first elections. And 270 killed in Turkey earthquake. And 130 arrested at Occupy Chicago protest. And Cantor cancels Occupy-themed speech over protest fears. And Argentina re-elects Fernandez de Kirchner. And Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez says he's free of cancer, and NPR drops opera program over hosts activism. But before these stories, GVTV News would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. In today's first world news story, the Obama administration has announced plans to withdraw nearly all U.S. troops from Iraq by the end of the year after failing to reach an agreement with the Iraqi government. The United States had discussed keeping thousands of troops in Iraq, but had insisted their immunity be extended as a precondition. After Iraqi government refused, the administration said Friday it would withdraw all its forces except for around 150 troops to guard U.S. sites. At the White House, President Obama said the withdrawal will mark the end of the Iraq War. And he said, "I can report that, as promised, the rest of our troops in Iraq will come home by the end of the year. After nearly 9 years, America's war in Iraq will be over. Over the next 2 months, our troops in Iraq, tens of thousands of them, will pack up their gear and board convoys for the journey home." Despite withdrawing nearly all troops by the end of 2011, the United States will still maintain a large force of private contractors. According to the ABC News, at least 5,000 contractors will remain in Iraq in addition to more than 4,500 support personnel. The United States closed its regional headquarters in northern Iraq in advance of the withdrawal date. Speaking on NBC's Meet the Press, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said the United States will maintain strong military ties in Iraq and issued a warning to Iran over trying to exert influence following the U.S. withdrawal. And she said, "No one should miscalculate America's resolve and commitment to help support the Iraqi democracy. We have paid too high of a price to give the Iraqis this chance and hope that Iran and no one else miscalculates that. So we are now going to have security relationships with Iraq for training and support of their military, similar to what we have around the world from Jordan to Colombia." In addition to maintaining a large private force in Iraq, Obama administration officials have also floated the possibility of maintaining a large military deployment in neighboring countries such as Kuwait. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said the United States will negotiate a new agreement with Iraq over military training and assistance. And he also said, "Once we've completed the reduction of the combat presence, then I think we begin a process of negotiating with them in order to determine what will be the future of that relationship. What kind of training do they need? What kind of security do they need? And how can we provide it in an effective way? We do this in other countries. That's what we're going to do in Iraq. Thousands of Libyans turned out for celebrations on Sunday to mark the death of former leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi and the apparent end to the fighting that overthrew his regime. Libya's governing National Transitional Council has proclaimed Gaddafi's death marks the liberation of Libya after more than 4 decades of autocratic rule. Gaddafi's body remains on display in the town of Maserati following his capture and death on Thursday. According to Reuters, an autopsy showed Gaddafi had a bullet in the head, a bullet in the abdomen, along with multiple injuries. United Nations and United States have called on Libya's interim government to explain the circumstances surrounding his killing. In his White House address, President Obama said the conflict in Libya is coming to a close. And he said, yesterday marked the definitive end of the Gaddafi regime in Libya, and there too our military played a critical role in shaping a situation on the ground in which the Libyan people can build their own future. Today, NATO is working to bring this successful mission to a close. So to sum up, the United States is moving forward from a position of strength. The long war in Iraq will come to an end by the end of the year. A transition in Afghanistan is moving forward, and our troops are finally coming home. Well, some of them. The United States has pulled out its ambassador to Syria, citing security concerns. U.S. State Department says Robert Ford has returned to Washington following threats on his personal safety. The U.S. Embassy in Damascus has confirmed Ford is no longer in the country, but says he was not formally recalled. Ford has angered the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad for backing Syria's protest movement. At least 3,000 civilians have been killed, and numerous human rights abuses have been reported in the Assad regime's crackdown so far this year. Here's a little surprise. Senator John McCain of Arizona has become the highest profile U.S. lawmaker to date to raise the possibility of U.S. military action in Syria. Speaking at an event in Jordan, McCain said now that military operations in Libya are ending, there will be renewed focus on what practical military operations might be considered to protect civilian lives in Syria. There are even growing calls among the opposition for many foreign military intervention. We hear these pleas for assistance. U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta is in Indonesia on his first trip to Asia since taking over the Pentagon. Speaking at a meeting with regional counterparts, Panetta vowed to maintain U.S. military deployment of 85,000 troops in East Asia, calling the Pacific a top priority. Tunisia has held its first ever democratic elections 9 months after the nation's popular uprising kicked off the Arab Spring and movements for change around the world. Voters are selecting a new assembly to appoint a new interim government and rewrite the Tunisian constitution. Results may be delayed after an unexpectedly large turnout. And at least 270 people have been killed and more than 1,000 injured following a 7.2 magnitude earthquake that rocked eastern Turkey. Rescuers worked through the night using cranes and shovels to clear piles of debris and rubble in the hopes of locating survivors. The city of Erksis, near the Iran border, was hardest hit with roughly 80 multi-story buildings collapsing to the ground. And around 130 protesters were arrested in Chicago over the weekend after refusing to leave their Occupy Chicago tent encampment at Grant Park, the site of President Obama's election night victory rally. Around 175 people were arrested in Grant Park just 1 week earlier. And House Majority Leader Eric Cantor canceled a speech at the University of Pennsylvania on Friday after apparently learning it was open to the public. Cantor was due to give a speech on income inequality in what was regarded as the first extensive Republican response to the Occupy Wall Street protest nationwide, but the speech was called off after Cantor's aides reportedly worried the audience would be full of protesters. Cantor had previously likened the Occupy protest to growing mobs. And in Argentina, President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner has been reelected in a landslide vote. Her margin of victory was the largest in Argentina presidential race since the end of the military dictatorship in 1983. Fernandez de Kirchner came to office replacing her husband Nestor Kirchner, who died last year. And Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez has declared himself cancer-free 4 months after surgery to remove a malignant tumor. Chavez has not disclosed his cancer diagnosis, but underwent 4 rounds of chemotherapy. He marked his public return with a speech before thousands of supporters and said, "Almost 4 months ago, exactly at the same time at this hour, I was in the operating room undergoing a procedure that lasted 7 hours. The cancer was treated, and now, like a miracle, 4 months later, I am here standing again before you. I am here with you on the streets, yet 4 months later." Controversy was erupted over the past week after one of Chavez's former doctors claimed the Venezuelan president has less than 2 years to live. The doctor, Salvador Navarrete, made the comments in an open letter and then fled Venezuela, citing fears for his safety. Navarrete last treated Chavez 10 years ago, but claimed he obtained the information from relatives and members of Chavez's medical team. Chavez's current doctor have rejected Navarrete's claims. More developments have occurred in the controversy surrounding the public radio host who lost one of her jobs over her political activism. Lisa Simone was dismissed at the show's Soundprint after National Public Radio officials raised concerns over her participation in the October 2011 protest in Washington, D.C. NPR now says it will no longer distribute Simone's other broadcast, World of Opera. Program's producer, North Carolina WDAV, says it plans to keep Simone as host and that her political involvement has no bearing on her role in broadcast. In correction into a Friday headline, Soundprint is distributed independently, not by NPR, but runs on public radio stations around the country. And that is it today for our world news. Now another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. You guessed it, it's us, GVTV News.
Soundcheck Music Center, the rock and roll connection. We have guitars, amps, drum equipment, sound accessories, lessons, and repairs. We are located at 671 Maltman Drive, Grass Valley. 530-272-7236, open 7 days a week.
That's right, it's time for the police blotter, and pictures in the blotter not from these actual events but used for visual aid only. Grass Valley Police Department on Friday. 7:35 a.m. Caller from 700 block of Maltman Drive reported a transient in a sleeping bag who was advised of the camping ordinance. And 10:28 a.m. a woman from 100 block of Acadia Drive reported being involved in a physical domestic dispute in Arizona yesterday with her husband, who dumped her in Grass Valley this morning. And 10:56 a.m. a woman from Freeman Lane and Taylorville Road reported a man broke her windshield. And 1:03 p.m. caller from 200 block on North Church Street reported teens shooting firearms. It was found to be firecrackers. 1:22 p.m. caller from 100 block on Neal Street reported a man with bloody arms who said he had gotten into a fight with a tree and lost. He could not be located. 1:56 p.m. a woman from 200 block of Washington Street reported finding her back door open. And 3:08 p.m. a caller from 100 block of Jorski Drive reported a battery had been stolen from a vehicle and gas siphoned from another vehicle. And 9:04 p.m. a caller from 300 block of Pleasant Street reported a party with loud music and underage drinking. A man was arrested on suspicion of violating probation, and a person was taken to the hospital due to extreme intoxication. At 9:12 p.m., caller from 300 block of Bennett Street reported a physical fight involving a man and a woman in a vehicle. He had left the scene, and she was uncooperative. At 10:17 p.m., a caller from 200 block of Glenbrook Drive reported girls with stolen scooters who could not be located. At 11:31 p.m., a caller from Mill and Neal Street reported a vehicle hit a pedestrian who was transported to the hospital. And Saturday, 12:24 a.m., a caller from 100 block of Lucas Lane reported partiers being rowdy and puking in the bushes. They agreed to stay inside. 11:41 a.m., a caller from Highway 49 and Neal Street reported a man possibly exposing himself. He was cited on suspicion of indecent exposure. And 3:55 p.m., a caller from West McKnight Way reported a man hit a child, said he had no license to drive, but he didn't care because he just got out of prison. A be on the lookout advisory was issued. And 4:09 p.m., a caller from Mill Street reported a physical fight involving 2 men and 2 dogs. It was a verbal argument because one dog slipped its chain and attacked the other dog, which had a minor injury. And 6:09 p.m., a caller from West McKnight Way reported a woman took an item and a man hit a coworker before leaving a store. And 6:11 p.m., a caller from Brighton and Chapel Street reported an extremely drunken man tried to hit his wife. And 6:30 p.m., a man from Memorial Park reported a woman bit him. He was uncooperative and was taken to the hospital. 7:49 p.m., he reportedly threatened to kill a nurse and was arrested on suspicion of being drunk in public. 7:57 p.m., caller from 600 block of Whiting Street reported 12 or 13 children were banging on doors and running away. And 8:08 p.m., a woman from 100 block of Hawkins Street reported theft of narcotic medication. And 8:08 p.m., a man from One Way reported detonators and explosives under his residence. He said his neighbors were conspiring to blow up or burn down his trailer. 10:04 p.m., caller from 800 block of Sutton Way reported a woman shoplifting. No charges were desired. And 11:25 p.m., a woman from 200 block of Depot Street reported a person possibly on her roof. A man was arrested on suspicion of burglary and an outstanding warrant. And Sunday, 12:04 a.m., a woman from 200 block of Depot Street reported a neighbor tried to attack her with a hammer. The situation was mediated. And 2:02 a.m., a caller from 300 block of Sutton Way reported a fire alarm in a building. A woman was found to have set off the alarm after she burnt her top ramen. In Nevada County Sheriff's Office, on Friday, 9:03 a.m., a caller from 18,000 block of Oak Tree Road reported an 11-foot portion of a fence had been taken. At 10:06 a.m., a caller from 24,000 block of Highway 49 reported a physical fight involving 4 men. It was a juvenile detainee issue. 6:36 p.m., a man from Wheeler Acres and Dog Bar Roads reported shooting a raccoon that was after his poultry. And 8:18 p.m., a caller from Ivy Lane and Tyler Foot Crossing Road reported a bunch of bikers causing a ruckus. At 9:59 p.m., a caller from 15,000 block of Ballantyre Lane reported hearing 5 gunshots. And Saturday, at 12:25 a.m., a caller from Indian Springs and Oak Springs Roads reported 2 motorcycles tearing up the road. At 8:32 a.m., a caller from 14,000 block of Gold Creek Court reported a burglary to a vehicle with an iPod and a GPS stolen. At 8:38 a.m., a caller from 11,000 block of Lakeshore North reported a vehicle burglary with $100 taken. And 1:40 p.m., a woman reported being run off the road in Natasha Court and Old Donegal Highway. She was riding a scooter. And 4:03 p.m., a man from 12,000 block of Burma Road reported a dispute with his daughter, who was calling relatives to bring her food against his wishes. He was told that the Nevada County Sheriff's Office would not parent his children for him. He said that would cause a fight with the Nevada County Sheriff's Office. They wouldn't like it. 6:29 p.m. he was called to report still being upset and saying he hears voices and to tell him to hurt people. 6:35 p.m. several callers reported hearing 18 to 20 gunshots at Old Nevada City Airport. And 6:36 p.m. a woman from Robin Avenue reported strange things were happening to electronics and her neighbors might be videotaping her. And Nevada City Police Department on Friday. At 12:12 p.m. a caller from 700 block of Zion Street reported a man asked for a ride and offered meth as payment. He could not be located. And Sunday, 2:37 a.m., a caller from 100 block of Sacramento Street reported multiple gunshots. A second caller reported someone in a parking lot lighting fireworks. It was quiet when officers arrived. And that's it for the blotter today. Now another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. In today's local news headlines, marijuana in the news again. A nonprofit to receive monetary assistance. In a story by Liz Keller of the Union, as the federal government cracks down on commercial marijuana dispensaries and raids local growers, a proposed county ordinance to regulate cultivation is stirring up controversy. The proposed county-wide ordinance to restrict or ban marijuana growing in residential neighborhoods was tentatively set to come before the Board of Supervisors Tuesday as a discussion item. But that has been pushed back to November at the earliest, said County Counsel Allison Barrett Green. This would be a draft for discussion, Barrett Green said. We would ask for directions as to whether the board would want to proceed with an ordinance. Barrett Green emphasized that the draft would be a discussion item only and would be subject to comments both from the public and the board. I would be happy to sit down with any community group, she said. What exactly the proposed ordinance would entail is still very much up in the air, but she said a ban on all outdoor grows is not part of the proposed language, although some fear the ordinance would ban grows in residential agricultural neighborhoods. Zoning is one of the issues we've discussed and how that might play into it. Adding that Nevada County is looking at cultivation restrictions recently imposed by other counties such as Mendocino, Tehama, Lake, and Butte. In Tehama County, for example, an ordinance requires 1,000-foot distance between school bus stops and marijuana gardens, restricts the number of plants based on parcel size, and 1,000-foot buffer requires registration with the county health service agency and a 6-foot fence around outdoor gardens. Local cannabis activist Patricia Smith hopes local government leaders will take what she calls a reasonable approach to regulation and suggests the county's entire economy is being put at risk. Cannabis is our state's #1 cash crop, Smith wrote in a recent submission to the Union. Nevada County is second only to the Emerald Triangle in statewide cannabis production. Accurate figures on the amount of money marijuana brings to our regions are scarce, but it's estimated our share of the pie exceeds $1 billion annually. Smith added that medical marijuana sales tax currently adds more than $100 million to our state's general fund, a big chunk of which goes to highways, roads, and bridges, and public education and aid of local governments. If we change our policy to treat cannabis like the wine industry, tax revenues to our state would grow to $1.3 billion, and Nevada County would receive several $1 million annually, she said. San Jose has collected over $300,000 a month since imposing a 7% local sales tax on cannabis. Smith, who runs nonprofit patients advocacy group Grassroots Solutions, had hoped to work to overturn the county ban on medical marijuana dispensaries. In the wake of the recent federal crackdown, Smith has adopted a wait-and-see tactic on the dispensary front, but she strenuously opposes any move by Nevada County to ban grows. People who demonize marijuana don't stop to realize how vital the cannabis market is to Nevada County, she said. The money from cultivation is pumped back into our local economy, virtually propping up every business in town. If you want to see a deserted Main Street, ban our #1 income producer. Smith says she does not advocate that people break the law, but that she hopes the county can craft a law that will work for everybody. Her fear, she said, is that increasing restriction will simply push more growers to the illegal side. Where does it stop? Smith asked. I feel government overreach is at critical mass. Grassroots Solution works with small growers who abide by a set of standards that include limiting the number of plants based on the parcel size. She supports limiting the number of plants to 6 in residential neighborhoods and concealed gardens from sight with fencing or greenhouses. Smith would support a program similar to one run in Mendocino County, where growers register and receive zip ties with serial numbers to attach to their marijuana plants. That would free up law enforcement to go after people who refuse to comply, she said. I'm praying the supervisors work with this. I get flack from both sides, but I just care about providing safe medicine for patients. Well said. We agree with what she just said. In a story written by Matthew Renda of the Union, Nevada County nonprofit dedicated to improving public and private foster care received a grant that will help advance its mission. Mission Focused Solutions of Grass Valley received a $25,000 grant from Sierra Health Foundation, a Sacramento-based private philanthropy organization that promotes improved health and quality of life for people in Northern California, said MFS Executive Director Gail Johnson Vaughn. For instance, if a child is separated from his or her parents due to drug abuse, those parents would be able to use services that render them fit for parental duties. In the meantime, Vaughn would like to see affected children paired with foster families that can offer them a permanent home. That would allow foster children to stay in one home rather than living as nomads, which children can experience in the current system's configuration. The foster care system needs tremendous change in the methodologies that it uses. We think we need to rethink a new way to recruiting and supporting foster families. Sierra Health Foundation awarded a total of nearly $572,000 to support projects in the second 2011 funding cycle. Since launching the program in 2008, SHF has distributed more than $4 million to support about 166 programs and projects. It's a good program. That's it for local news today. GVTV News would like to thank Associated Press, Reuters, Amy Goodman, and Union, and others for the sourcing of our news, and especially you for watching. Don't forget, we broadcast 3 times a day, public access NCTV, Comcast Cable Channel 11, and Sudden Link Channel 16 in Truckee and Alta Sierra, 8 a.m., 3 p.m., and 7:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. And talk to you tomorrow, should be Wednesday.